Well, hi everybody. Thanks for joining for the Dharma talk today, and everyone online as well. Um, I'll just introduce myself to. I see some people in here that I don't recognize. Some people I do recognize. Some people I don't. So my name's Emily. I've been a volunteer at the Nyingma Institute for 5.5 years. I'm still here. I still work here, and um, I've been doing Dharma talks, teaching some meditation classes, some Kumne classes for the past maybe 2-ish years. And this Dharma talk in particular is something that has this topic has interested me for a long time. So it's about how to practice self-love, which I think is such a rich topic because it can be, or in my opinion, has been heavily distorted in sort of modern forms. And I think that there is a healthier way that we can learn to practice self-love, a way that is much more balanced, much more wholesome, and also takes into or really takes us out of this need to compete and compare, which is something that is so conditioned in us. It feels almost very natural, but it's really a patterned way of trying to feel safe in the world. Hi. Um, and there's another way to be. So we're gonna kind of dive into that together. I'm really excited to talk about this with everyone. So we're gonna start just by doing a quick sitting, just to kind of let go of whatever we came in here with today. So you can come into a comfortable meditation posture, whatever that looks like for you. If you're familiar with the 7 gestures, you can come into the 7 gestures. But however you would like to sit, that helps you feel relaxed and balanced. So just allow yourself to relax as you come to sitting. Let your cheeks relax, your eyes relax, shoulders come down, relax your belly. If you're holding on to anything from the day, see if you can just set that down like some heavy luggage. Just set it down. You don't need it right now. And then bring your awareness to your breath. It comes in and out. Just become aware of that feeling tone, the breath entering the lungs, and the breath leaving the lungs, out the mouth, out the nose. Your breath might naturally start to soften, come a little slower. Just allow that to happen. We're not trying to change or fix anything right now, but we're just being with our experience. And as you start to relax, allow a positive intention to arise for you. Come in the form of words, specific intention. It could also just be a feeling in the heart or a feeling of warmth. Something that signals to you that there's some wholesome, positive energy to this time that we have together. And let that intention expand throughout your body in whatever way that makes sense to you. And then let it expand past your body, out into the space around you, out into the world, out into this room. Letting this room fill up with this positive intention. And letting that intention inform the rest of the time that we have together. And perhaps even beyond it. Now you can just gently let that go, trusting that that positive intention will stay with you and stay with all of us for this class. And just bring yourself back into the space. You can maybe just give yourself a little self massage or rub your legs, knees. Just bring yourself back. And so I want to start with a question. So this is a question that I would like responses for. We only have time for a few, so I'm gonna cap it at maybe 3 responses. So just pipe up if you feel like you really want to share. Um, so what comes to mind when you think of self-love? Like, what does that conjure in your mind when you hear that phrase, those words? Um, what does it mean to love yourself? And also, how do you practice that? How does that become a practice for you? I'm just curious to hear, if anyone has a response to that. It could be in person or online. So, yes.
Oh, well, kind of like answering the question because I don't feel I particularly have like self-love, growing up and until getting even more into practice. So first I would say like, oh, I think it could be enjoy being in my company, but that's I always enjoy being in my company and like alone and everything. So that could be an answer, but also a question in a way, because is it, no, because I had that, but not particularly self-love.
Mm.
So, and how is that different than self-esteem even? So I kind of have a partial answer.
Yeah.
And I'm still exploring. I think this practice helps a lot.
Yeah.
With the practice.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I feel like what I'm hearing from you is that it's an exploration, that there's still questions around that, in that we're still, or you specifically, but I think all of us can relate, probably to some degree, we're still exploring what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to love ourselves? Any other thoughts? And there's no right answer. I'm not looking for right answers. I'm just looking to hear. Oh, Robin, yes.
Hi. You know how every flight you hear if there's a decompression on the airplane, put your own mask on first before assisting your child. And to me, that's like really good definition of self-love because if you pass out and you're unconscious, you lost your child as well. So it's important, that you're take care of your own body and your own self in order to serve the world and anybody else that you might, love. So I think it starts with taking care of yourself. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I love me, I'm the best. It's more like I'm going to get enough sleep and take vitamins and eat the right things.
Yeah, thank you so much. I that's what you said is very resonant with a lot of what we'll be talking about is of this concept of helping ourselves so that we can help others. If we're totally depleted, if we do nothing but, self-deprecate all the time, or we can't find our own value, how can we offer that to others? There has to be some foundation of that within ourselves first before we can then extend that to someone else. And so it really goes hand in hand, loving ourselves and loving others. It's kind of like it's a complete practice. So I think we have time for one more response if anybody has anything else to share before we move on. Oh,
I'm reminded of a chapter in life, probably a very long one, where I discovered, my gosh, I'm a helpaholic. You're in service to your children and to your work and to a spouse and your environmental causes and PBS volunteer time. And that was a revelation. And now I rephrase that and think, consider oneself in most of your transactions. Don't just spontaneously, compulsively be there because, as you depletion is a good word. That's where you will arrive at compassion burnout. So that balance you referred to is probably in the whole life arc of working towards.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. And sometimes that overgiving comes from or can come from a place of wanting to please, like wanting to please because it can make us feel better to make others feel better. And I think sometimes, it's helpful, like you're saying, to take a step back and just say, what do I need in this moment? What do I need in order to better serve someone, and to not overgive in a way that leads to burnout for sure. So I want to talk about the difference between genuine self-love and what's considered self-cherishing. So when I talk about love, I'm talking about love in terms of the four measurables. So for those who are familiar with the four measurables, these are the immeasurable qualities that we give to others. We can also give them to ourselves. And they are love, compassion, equanimity, and joy. And the one that I'm focusing on here, obviously, is love. And technically, through the four measurables, love is considered to be the wish for beings or whoever the object is, wish for their happiness. So if we love ourselves, we're essentially wishing for our own happiness, believing that we're worthy of happiness. Then on the other end, we have self-cherishing. So the definition of self-cherishing, according to the book, The Kindness of Others, is the tendency to focus on our own happiness while neglecting the welfare and needs of others. So it's kind of interesting. It's like there's love, self-love, wishing for our own happiness, and then there's self-cherishing, neglecting the happiness of others. So there's this middle ground we're trying to find, where we're not going too far to one end or the other. Self-cherishing, and I want to be clear that this isn't to mean that we only want to prioritize others. We never want to prioritize our own care. Just like Robin and Jill both mentioned, prioritizing our own care is foundational for us to be able to care for others. But there can be a consistent sort of pattern that we have with self-cherishing that can be conditioned through samsara, where we might consider our needs to be more important than the needs of others. There's a hierarchy that we're creating, and we may not always be aware of that. But oftentimes there's this hierarchy of believing ourself or our needs are more important. And it can be kind of hard to acknowledge that or admit to that, but this is part of our practice, is seeing this selfishness in action. And I wanted to talk a little bit about modern forms of self-love, and like maybe some of y'all can relate to some of these things or seeing some of these things in the world, or maybe in certain spaces or certain practices, people kind of promoting self-love in certain ways. And a lot of these forms of modern self-love sort of are more towards the self-cherishing realm rather than the true self-love realm. And so I'm gonna just touch on a few that I've noticed. I also asked ChatGPT for some help, and just like what are the forms of self-love that are kind of like a little bit toxic. So one of them is radical self-prioritization. So this is kind of what I said. It's not not prioritizing ourselves at all. Obviously, we have to prioritize our needs. We have to make sure that all our needs are met, our hierarchy of needs are met. But it's a persistent attitude of putting our wants and desires first in a way that makes it hard to show up for others. So I don't know if you've ever heard someone be like, you know what, like I've been giving too much to others, like it's all about me now. And while like there definitely are times where we need to do that, or we need to put ourselves first, sometimes we can swing to this opposite end where it's like, now I'm the only one who's important. I'm the only one who matters. And it becomes a little bit too of a self-fixation. Another one that I've noticed in like modern self-love is the hyperfixation on being special and unique rather than cooperation with the group. So I think all of us have natural and authentic forms of self-expression, and we should encourage that from ourselves. You know, we all have different personalities, we all have our different ways of expressing. So I don't mean like we should stamp out any originality or uniqueness, but it's more of this feeling of like, I need to be seen, or I want to feel special. And I think we all can feel that at times. And it inherently comes from a sense of comparison with other people, sense of competitiveness, and oftentimes can foster jealousy. It can foster, ill will towards others, when we should maybe more just celebrate the fact that we're all different, celebrate that we all are special and unique in our own ways, and we all have value and things to offer. And then the last one that I'll mention is just doing things that boost the ego. So this can kind of look like a hyperfixation on self-improvement, feeling like I need to be the best, feeling like I need to be, have the best this, have the best car, the best clothes. And sometimes this can come from, I think everyone is familiar with like affirmations, where you say in front of the mirror, like, nice things about yourself. And while in some ways that can be, it's nice to say kind words to yourself and it's nice to promote that kind of positivity, I think sometimes it can be helpful to question what's the motivation behind it? Why do I feel like I need these such qualities? Why do I feel like I need to feel like I'm, better at this or like I'm the most attractive person or I'm, these things that maybe we're trying to boost in ourselves. Usually what's underlying that is some qualities of the self-image of the ego that's sort of projecting its own desires, and then we're trying to meet the need of the ego, essentially. So, like I said, these practices can lead to self-cherishing, where we start to put ourselves above others. And by doing this, it strengthens the ego, and it also tightens our identification with the self. So the more that we respond to the ego's desires, the more, say the ego is saying like, I want to be the best at this. I want to feel, I want to win this competition. I want to do this, and I want to like prove myself. And there's things that you're hearing may sound like it's coming from you, but most likely it's coming from the desires of the self-image and from the ego. And the more that we respond to that, the more it tightens our identification with it. And as we know, the ego and the self-image is what is obscuring us from our true nature. So, and so I also want to talk about the opposite. So the opposite would be more in the realm of self-dislike, self-hatred, being self-deprecating. So we don't want to swing to that side of the pole either, because they're basically two sides of the same coin. So self-hatred and strong self-cherishing, it's all part of this these projections from the ego, the ego wanting to maintain a sense of control. So you might notice things like being too hard on yourself, or not being compassionate when you make a mistake, being, too harsh with yourself. So these are signs of maybe some self-deprecating, some criticism of self, kind of in the realm of self-hatred. And also, if we swing to one end, inevitably we're going to swing to the other. So that's just kind of what happens once we're in this cycle of self-hatred, self-cherishing, is that we're stuck in this pendulum swing. And what we want to do is we want to bring ourselves into the middle, like find this middle place, this middle ground of contentment and acceptance. So not a place where we feel like we have all these things we have to fix about ourselves, or a place where we feel like we're the best, but a place where we just feel content with who we are, and we accept who we are. So I have another question, if anybody has responses. So since both self-hatred and self-cherishing can be major obstacles, especially in the West, what do you think it looks like to love yourself in a healthy way? Like, what do you think that means, or like how to practice that? Yes.
It's like you mentioned self-hatred and self-cherishing. So to not practice self-hatred and to not practice self-cherishing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. It's like you can kind of notice when you're doing either of those things, Did everybody online hear that? No. He said basically try not to practice self-hatred or self-cherishing. And so I'm just kind of elaborating in that, we can notice when these things are coming up. Just like we can notice when we have thoughts, we can notice when we have emotions, and we don't have to identify with them. So the same goes for these patterns of personality, these patterns of mind. Notice when we're being hard on ourselves. Notice when we're not giving ourselves compassion or grace. And then also notice when maybe we're too fixated on certain qualities, we're too fixated on wanting to improve, or maybe we're comparing ourselves to others, or maybe we feel competitive or jealous towards others. These are things that we can start to notice in real time, and also not be hard on ourselves when these things come up, because all of these things are extremely human and natural to our conditioning. Any other thoughts, like how to love ourselves in a healthy way? Yes.
I've been a teacher for many years, and so there's some experience. And in modern education, there is this impulse, boost the self-confidence of every student. And I just want to warn against that, the way it's done, because it can be very imbalanced. Because it then is often connected to achievement. And it's often connected to their modern pedagogues who consider it shaming other students if you acknowledge when one student achieved something special. So you cut out that, which means you cut out also the differentiated perception of who you are. You might you did something great in math, no, you're not good at something else. And what I found, what is actually what every student craves and what we crave is just to be seen, authentically seen. Not you're great, you're not this, who are you? Wow, look at you. And there's such happiness and balance that comes from that. And we need to cultivate that again and then look at ourselves like that. Because it always is mutual. What I do to others, I do to myself without even knowing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It really reminds me, or it makes me think of like how we're so quick, like when kids do something, we're so quick to be like, good job. Yeah, like that's great. Good job. And it's coming from a good place, right? But there is a little bit of this quality of like, that's a good job, that's a bad job. And they start to condition their behaviors based on that. Am I going to get positive reaction? Am I going to get approval if I do this? As opposed to just saying, like, you created something. That's interesting. You know, something more neutral where kids can start to maybe explore like what feels authentic to them rather than what feels like is going to get them praise. So I think I really resonate with that for sure. Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about in how to love ourselves in a healthy way is really acknowledging the concept of Buddha nature. So, is everyone familiar, or is there anyone who's not familiar with Buddha nature, what that means? Okay, well, yeah. Well, we'll talk about it anyway, so. So Buddha nature, or it's also called Tathagata. It's a hard word to say, but I'm trying to get better at saying it. Tathagata. It's basically, this is the definition from Path of Heroes. So it's the unmanifested heart of awakening and the primordial enlightened nature that exists simultaneously with all beings. So this primordial enlightened nature is something that all beings, all sentient beings have. It's essentially, it's in our essence. We are literally made up of this, this enlightened nature. It's for most of us, it's unmanifested. So that just means that that's what's different between us and a Buddha, is that in the Buddha, it's manifested. You see it, it's fully present in their being and their expression. And for us, we manifest as regular beings. and we don't manifest as Buddhas, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So it's still within us, and part of our nature. It is our nature. So the importance of recognizing this is that there is something beyond just our immediate expression, our superficial expression. There's something beyond our achievements, beyond our personality, beyond our appearance, our looks, beyond how many friends we have. You know, there is something that goes deeper than those qualities, and those aspects of our expression. And when we recognize that, we can see that these outer forms, these outer things, are not really who we are. They're not really what makes up our value and why we matter. So through understanding this, we can start to unlearn some things. So I think with Buddhism, there's a lot of unlearning. There's learning and there's quite a lot of unlearning. And so that unlearning is, unlearning that we don't need to project an idealized image of ourselves. We don't need to be what our ego thinks we should be. We don't need to check every box. We don't need to fulfill every single obligation and be the best at everything. And we can start to unlearn that. Kind of like Elko was saying, we're taught things from a certain age as children, and then we start to really believe those things. But these are just beliefs. They're just thoughts, and we don't have to stick with them forever. So because Buddha nature is already the essence of our being, we also can recognize that all beings have Buddha nature. All beings have this equality of enlightened nature. And at the most fundamental level, so like I said, obviously there's some beings like the Buddha who have that enlightened nature manifested. And so they appear, quite amazing and striking. So they definitely appear on the outside different than us. But at the most fundamental level, all sentient beings, there is an equality of this essence. There's no more or better, or there's no hierarchy. So once we're at that level, it's all the same, and we are all equal. And so by recognizing that, we can see others as our equals. We can see that we're not in competition. We don't need to fight each other. We don't need to scramble to the top, but that we truly are equal in this fundamental way. And it's very similar to the immeasurable of equanimity. So people are familiar with the four immeasurables. There's the immeasurable of equanimity, which is often the one that's recommended to practice with first. It's, this idea of seeing all beings as equal. So, we don't see anybody as better than others. We don't see ourselves as better than others or lesser, but just this equality of beings who are all worthy of love, worthy of compassion. And we start with that, with the four measurables, because we kind of need that first before we start giving, love and compassion to people. But to see that we truly are all the same at the deepest level. Obviously, superficially, we seem very different, but at the deepest level, we're the same. So what does this look like in practice? This is a lot of concepts, like a lot of thinking about these things, but what does it actually look like in practice? Like, how do we practice this, this learning to see ourselves and all beings as equal, this learning to love in a true way. So, so I think that we practice this by actually working with the immeasurable quality of love. And so that just means practice wishing happiness for ourselves. And so I think a couple people mentioned this, but in order to wish that for others, in order to show up for others, we do need to first be able to give that to ourselves. Otherwise, there's just a deficit. You know, if you can't wish happiness for yourself, then how can you truly wish happiness for others? If you think that you deserve, you know, the deepest, you know, dungeon and darkest of experiences, but everyone else deserves happiness, like it's not really going to you're not going to be effective in that. So we do need to be able to practice first wishing happiness for ourselves. Um, so we are going to move into a practice. So if everybody wants to just get comfortable if you're not already. And so for some of us, it may even feel somewhat challenging to imagine ourselves or imagine giving love to ourselves or imagine that we are worthy of happiness. So we'll start first by imagining someone we deeply, deeply love. So bring to mind someone you deeply love, or it could also be a pet, it could be an animal. And let it be someone who has really been there for you. Someone who's really been kind to you. Someone who has helped you, cared for you. Someone who really makes you feel this deep love in your heart and also a deep wish that they have happiness. So bring this person to mind, or animal, pet. They don't have to be living, be somebody you knew once. And then imagine and deeply wish from your heart that this person attains true happiness. And see them in their most happiest form. You can see them basking in happiness. All their problems have been relieved. They've come to a place where they just feel content. Once you feel that the strong wish and love from your heart feels stable, feels powerful, now instead of this person, see yourself in your mind. And still holding on to this feeling, this deep wish for happiness, imagine having that wish for yourself. Seeing yourself in your happiest form. Free of obstacles, free of suffering. deeply, deeply wish from your heart that you too have this strong sense of happiness, knowing that you are also deserving of that. So, this practice shows us that love for ourselves does not need to be based on conditions. It doesn't need to be based on us measuring up to something, um, but that there is a fundamental worthiness that we have. Um, and when we contact that, I think we can more regularly sort of bask in this worthiness without needing to, like I was mentioning before, swing to these poles of I'm not good enough, I'm the best, but we can be right here. I am worthy of love, no matter what, and I am okay as I am. Um, so, yeah, so I'm curious to hear what people notice from the practice. Like, is it hard? Is it hard to wish happiness for yourself? Or was it very easeful? Was it very, natural to do so? Or any thoughts? Or how does it feel also, I guess? Well, I can say for myself that um, it made me notice maybe some tension I was holding on to, some tension of wanting to perform in a certain way, or um, just these little patterns that go unnoticed often. And then when I just gave myself that love free of conditions, I just felt a lot more relaxed. So that was at least my experience with it. So I wanted to do that practice first, and then we're eventually going to move into a Tonglen practice. So is anyone not familiar with Tonglen? So Tonglen is the practice of exchanging self for others. Um, so I thought it was important to do the self-love practice first, because otherwise the Tonglen practice could potentially become distorted if people are prone to overgiving or giving too much of themselves. We want to have that basis, that foundation of what Robin said, caring for ourselves, have that fundamental care first before we then practice what does it feel like to put others first, and it doesn't mean at every single moment, it doesn't mean, that we sacrifice ourselves, but it just means that when we have this strength and care and confidence within ourselves, it becomes easier for us to give in a way that is not depleting, but is nourishing. And Tonglen is a great way to practice that. So Tonglen is the practice of actually visualizing that you're taking on the suffering of others and that you're giving them your benefits. So it's kind of like when we dedicate the merit and we say, I want to give the merit to everybody else. Like I want other people to be happy. And so Tonglen is basically that practice in action. It can be a very challenging practice, so don't worry if it feels challenging to you. And we're only going to do it for a little bit. But it's just a nice way to help us work on destroying our self-cherishing, actually. It really cuts through selfishness, self-cherishing, and it shows us the energy that we can actually gain from giving to others, putting others first. Like I said, I'm not suggesting that we at all times put others first or sacrifice ourselves. I'm just saying that there is an attitude and there is an approach that we can start to cultivate and become familiar with, and see the benefits of that. So once again, just coming back to sitting in your meditation posture. Finding that comfort and balance in your body. So this is a practice that we do working with the breath. So as you breathe in, imagine that you're gathering into your being all the wrongdoing and all the suffering of others, as well as all the negative karma. And as you do so, you can actually imagine that these beings, so it could be all beings, it could be someone specific in mind that you want to bring ease to their suffering, whatever is resonating with you right now. But as you breathe in their suffering, imagine that they are completely free of this burden of suffering. That they are just, it just washes away from them and they feel extreme relief. And then as we breathe out, imagine that all your merit, all your well-being, all the positive energy is going to this person or these people. And it's fully nourishing them, fully bringing them back to a state of contentment and happiness. So you can continue this visualization. On the in-breath, breathing in the suffering of others. On the out-breath, imagining that all your merit and well-being is going out to others. And as you do this, as you breathe in their suffering, breathe out all your well-being. This process, you can even believe and imagine that it's destroying your own negative karma, and that it is releasing the knots of your own negative karma as you do this. And so by freeing others, you're also freeing yourself. And if you feel any type of fear or worry about taking on the suffering of others or not feeling prepared to do that, you can also imagine that the Buddha is above you, supporting you in that, or some other benevolent being that resonates with you. If it helps, you can also visualize that the suffering is like a black smoke. You're breathing that in, and that the merit and well-being is like a bright, clear, crystal clear light. Breathing that out. So, anyone have any final thoughts or final comments about any of the practices or the Tonglen practice specifically? Was that doable for everybody or was it challenging? A lot of times, oh, yes. Oh, hey.
The suggestion of the Buddha supporting us was really helpful for me because I was having like kind of like fear coming up.
Did y'all online hear that? Yeah. That's great. I'm glad to hear that because that is often the experience for a lot of people. It can feel really overwhelming. It's just like I'm just this person. I don't, how am I supposed to take on the suffering well-being? So it's kind of a lot. It's big commitment. I don't know if I'm ready for that. So we can always call on the Buddha, or we can call on, Padmasambhava or Avalokiteshvara, whoever resonates with you. And they have limitless capacity for taking on suffering. So they can always help us with that. Any final thoughts? So, yeah, so I think basically I'll just kind of sum up, what I'm hoping to transmit to everyone, and hopefully people resonate. It's just that there is a deeper quality to all of us that doesn't depend on these external, outer, superficial forms. And we can find and dwell in a sense of love and confidence within ourselves, that cuts way, way deeper. That's part of our essence. And we can start to unlearn some of these ways that we compete with others, that we're combative with others, that we feel like there's not enough for everyone. And we can turn to our inner essence, our Buddha nature, and we can wish for happiness for ourselves, which is really the truest form of love, is the wish that, or really the belief that we are worthy of happiness, despite anything, despite the craziness in the world, despite what maybe people have told us, or, things have happened, that we are deeply, deeply worthy of happiness, all of us, in a totally equal way. So I hope that resonates. And let's go ahead and dedicate the merit together. So we'll chant Om Ahum 3 times. And for those who aren't familiar with dedicating the merit, it's kind of like the practice we just did with Tonglen. So it's basically all this goodness that we've accumulated through this practice, these practices, we are giving it away to all sentient beings. And we do that by chanting Om Ahum 3 times together. Okay. Thanks everyone online, everyone in person for coming to the Dharma Talk. I really enjoyed exploring this topic with y'all and hearing everyone's responses. So yeah, I hope to see y'all at another Dharma Talk in the future. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.